Welcome to episode 6 of my 6.9 episode series where I discuss 69 Xbox 360 games that are going up in value. Xbox 360 prices are really starting to tear. Okay, it's getting crazy out there. But guess what? This is still early days and the games are still cheap. I know a lot of you are looking at a lot of these games saying, holy hell, those games are expensive. That game was $5 a few years ago. Now it's $50. That game over there was $10, $25. Now it's $200. Well, when you look at every console before the 360 and the PS3, all the previous generations, this always happens. The prices are still cheap. And I'm going to show you plenty of games that are still cheap in the grand scheme of things, and they are going up. I started this series about 1 year ago. Today, I am very close to finally finishing it, and during the course of that year, you saw the prices go up. As a matter of fact, just in the last 30 days, I've seen some games, rare games, those hidden gems that I'm always talking about, that I give you in all episodes. I'm going to have a link to in the description below. All previous episodes. Some of those games that were previously $40 are now $200. And yeah, things have gotten crazy. Like, now is the time to buy. And the prices are just going to continue to go up because it's a generational thing. By the way, guys, all of the game prices that I show will be in Canadian dollars, and we are talking about the long-term trends here. There's always somebody in the comments says, well, this particular game is down 10%. It is down 15%. The prices are coming down. No, they're not, you moron. Have you looked at the chart of any game ever in existence other than Barbie? Okay, any rare game, uncommon game, highly sought-after game. Look at any previous generation. Hell, just look up 360 games, as a matter of fact, and look at the bigger chart. Zoom out, look at the bigger picture. What is the trend? The short-term moves really don't mean anything. You want to know what is the bigger picture, what is the trend. Let's get started with game number 1. Starting off strong, too, by the way. This is a game that not many people know about. And I'm going to tell you why you might want to consider adding it to your collection, and why the price is probably going to go up, to be honest with you. Capcom Digital Collection. And those that are familiar with this game, because I know I got a lot of hardcore 360 fans on this channel who might even own this game. Some people familiar with this game might say, well, you know, that game's not particularly all that great, but it holds a secret. It holds a couple of secrets, in fact. So let's go over what's included on this game for starters. We got Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix. A lot of people love that game. I'm not a big fan. I know it's a classic. It's cool. A lot of people will tell you that's one of the better choices on here. I'm not a fan of that one. We got Bionic Commando Rearmed number 2. Hell yeah, sign me up for that one. That's one of the best games on here. Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix. Hell yeah. If you're into puzzle games, that's a 10 out of 10 puzzle game. 1942 Joint Strike. Hell yeah. World of Battlefield Commando 3. Another great game. Flock. It's an interesting puzzle game you play as a UFO. Don't care about that one. Where the money's at is in Rocket Men Axis of Evil. It came from Uranus, which also comes with the DLC. Okay, it comes with the expansion pack. It came from Uranus expansion pack for Rocket Men Axis of Evil. Okay, that's DLC content. And more importantly, and the one that I've never heard anybody on YouTube mention, and I'm not exaggerating because nobody talks about this game for starters. You can't even find a friggin' review on this game, like an actual YouTuber having done a proper review of this game. Good luck. And the ones that have mentioned it, they mentioned the final game here, Final Fight Double Impact. Does it have a picture of it? Yeah. Top corner there, Final Fight Double Impact. And every single person that I saw talk about the game, they only mentioned Final Fight, which is an HD version of Final Fight. Apparently, it's actually a really good one too. By the way, it's arcade, very close to arcade perfect, from what I hear. I've beaten the game. In fact, I downloaded this exact game, like actual download on the Xbox Live Arcade back in the day. But part of Final Fight Impact, which is not advertised, it also includes an arcade classic called Magic Sword, one of the best games ever made. It's also on the Super Nintendo, but guess what? The Super Nintendo version sucks. Super Nintendo version is not 2-player, and it suffers from severe slowdown. There's no slowdown. This is an arcade perfect port of frickin' Magic Sword. And it's got 2-player co-op. That alone says buy this game right now. And as a matter of fact, a lot of these games are 2-player co-op, and some of them are 4-player co-op, such as what I'll tell you straight up right now is a hidden gem, the Rocket Men game with the DLC. That's 4-player co-op, same screen. Okay, you know I love my co-ops. Co-op games automatically get higher rating than they would have normally been otherwise. And let's face it too, another thing here, guys. This is all games that you can download on the Xbox Live Arcade. I'm not sure if they're all still available, but even if they are, they're not going to be available forever. Okay? At some point, these are going to get taken down. At some point. All of the marketplaces eventually close. Every single frickin' one of them is going to eventually close. Even the Nintendo Switch one that you have today, guess what? That's going to close on you one day. So check this one out if you're interested. Let's pull up the chart. So my microphone was messing up, so I'm having to re-record this now. But here we are looking at the chart of this Capcom Digital Collection. And as you can tell, the chart really hasn't done much. It's crept up. It's had that first wave creep up, and it's looking to form a base right now. It's forming a base, and it's trying to find out where exactly that's going to be. So it's kind of bouncing up and down within a range. But what I want to really point out is that this game was never a cheap game. Meaning it was never a $5 or $10 game. It's always commanded a high value for what it is. Because it's also not a highly sought after game. In fact, most people probably haven't even heard of this game, and perhaps even many people would have no interest in owning this as a physical game on top of that. But the fact that it commanded a high value right from the start when nobody was after Xbox 360 games tells you just how rare and or uncommon this game is. And I also want to remind new viewers who haven't seen my previous episodes, these charts that you see here from price charting, they don't show you the exact highs and the exact lows. So as you can see, there was a recent sale 2 weeks ago for $45. May or may not have included shipping. Also, these prices might not include shipping, right? This is the flaws of price charting, but these charts are used simply to show us the trend. So the exact highs are not going to be the exacts, but we will get a big picture trend because the chart is averaging these prices. So we had a wave one move up from about $15 to, let's say, $25, $30, and we're currently looking for that floor. What is the new bottom base level that it will never drop below ever again? You're not going to get this for $15. I'm telling you that right now. It's never going back to 15, and this slow and steady trend will continue. But here's what's interesting about a game like this, and I've seen it happen a million times over on multiple consoles, including the Xbox 360. Where a rare hidden gem shows up that nobody knows exists. It's a complete sleeper. It's sitting at $30 or $40 for perhaps many years, 2, 3, 4 years even. And then all of a sudden, the market wakes up. That can be triggered by a number of things. Sometimes the market just wakes up on its own. You know, it starts with a handful of people, and then other people just catch on, they find out what's going on. The market's going to work how the market wants to work. Other times, it could be a big name YouTuber. I remember Phantom Dust. Phantom Dust, that's exactly what happened. The OG Xbox game Phantom Dust. It skyrocketed overnight from like $10 to what was the high? 200, 300, 150? It did that because some multi-million subscriber YouTuber made a good video about it being one of the biggest hidden gems of all time, which it is. And I've mentioned Phantom Dust before, but let's look at it. This is the chart here. It shot up from about $15. It was well over 100. Remember, price charting doesn't show you the exact highs, but you get the picture. It was a 10-bagger overnight. And guess what? People thought, oh, it's going to come crashing back down to 10. I'll wait for it to come down to 15 and pick it up again. No, it's a hidden gem that's now been revealed. People know it exists. They didn't know it existed before. They didn't know it was a good game. I knew it was a good game. I own it because I bought it back in the day. And guess what? Nobody knew about it back then either. It was sold in the discount bins. It was sold as a discount shovelware game almost. But this is a first-party Microsoft game. And there's a long history to go behind this game. Check out that YouTube video. Try to find it. It was made by some guy that has like 1 million subscribers. I don't remember who, but do a search for it. It's like a 45-minute video, maybe 35, 45. Well, something like a Capcom Digital Collection. Yeah, it's not the best game, but there are some good gems on here. And I'm telling you right now, it's a sleeper. This is the very definition of a sleeper that could wake up when you least expect it. That's all I'm saying. If you're interested and you want to play some of that Magic Sword, one of the best games ever made, arcade games ever made, you might want to check it out. I'm bringing you a monster freaking hit. Some of you are going to laugh, but let me tell you and explain why you shouldn't be laughing. You should be, in fact, you might want to put some diapers on before you get a little too excited. This is Saw for the Xbox 360. Oh wait, I forgot to mention. This is not on the PS3. Capcom Digital Collection, that's a 360 exclusive. There's always somebody in the comment, that's not an exclusive. It's on I can download that or whatever. Okay, buddy, it's a physical exclusive. It's not on the PS3. So it's just exclusive to the 360. So we got Saw. This is a third-person survival horror game. Saw came out in 2009, and if you didn't notice, it's a Konami title. That's going to play a big role coming up in a minute. CIB, of course. Guys, if you're a collector, make sure you get CIB. You're going to regret it otherwise, because we've all been there before. You cheap out, you get disc only, and then later you have to go out and buy another copy of the game because you realize that you want the case and the manual. So this is a third-person survival horror game. It is very much exactly like the movie. It's what you would expect a Saw video game to be. You are trying to escape an asylum. You're playing out as if you were in a Saw movie. There are lots of puzzles to solve, just like a Saw movie. But the thing is, the game got very poor reviews. And you also have to understand it's a movie-based title. I can guarantee you it got heavily ignored just based on being a movie title alone. More so than it would have if this was some other horror game unrelated to the movie. In fact, I remember being in Blockbuster Video. This is a true story. I was in Blockbuster Video. I saw some younger kids rent Saw. It might have been Saw 2. But I saw them rent it. And like many others, I just assumed it sucked. I don't even need to play it or look up a review. It's a movie game. It's going to suck. I felt bad. These young kids were wasting their money on the weekend. They're renting a game for the weekend. They're all excited. We all been there. We were kids once renting video games. I felt so bad. Those kids are wasting their money. It's going to be a terrible weekend. Renting Saw. Well, you know what? I bet you they had a good time with it. The game was praised by critics for having a really good storyline, very good visuals, but it was bashed to hell for everything else. Although it does have multiple endings, a lot of replayability, over 18 weapons that you can get. There's action scenes, there's puzzle scenes, but the critics bashed it to hell and back. Let's look at the chart. Well, here we go. We got ourselves a frickin' beauty. She made a monster move, what appears to be early 2020. Started in about March. $15 game, CIB. Why didn't any of you buy it for $15? You could have got a horror game, because guess what? I think you might have forgot something here. What do horror games and RPGs do? What's the number one genre that goes up in value in general, genre-wise? Number one, horror. Nothing beats a good horror game. Those horror games take off to the frickin' moon. Especially the rare ones. And some of them aren't even rare. Some of those Silent Hill games, they're not even rare. Worth a frickin' fortune because they're good. And for whatever reason, that niche is very popular and you get... it's got a cult following. Those that love that niche, they frickin' love it and they buy up any and every game they can get their hands on. RPGs also do very well and hold their value. So even if Saw was a bad game, it's still a horror game. And I can guarantee you right now, it will continue to climb on that fact alone. It's a freaking Konami horror game. And guess what? It's not a low-budget title. And I don't think the reviews do it justice. Some might even say, actually, that here's an interesting point. Some might tell you the game is so bad that it's actually good. What I can tell you for sure, some of you are going to say it's the worst game ever made. Some of you say, hey, I actually enjoyed the Saw games. Well, one thing that we can agree on is that the game is gaining popularity every month that passes. It's gaining a cult following, whether you think it's the best game ever made or the worst game ever made. It doesn't matter. It's gaining a cult following regardless. It can be the worst game ever made and still go to $500.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
So here's the thing about the Saw games. Konami purchased the rights to produce this game from another company that went bankrupt. They had already started the development. Konami finished the development, made a bunch of changes. But when they purchased the rights, they saw the Saw franchise as being their next big franchise, their next big horror franchise that would double as a spiritual successor to the Silent Hill series. That's what they had envisioned for Saw. This is not a low-budget garbage game. They tried to create something unique. Something else that's very unique about this game is that you are not only solving puzzles, but you're also disarming traps. And guess what? You can reassemble those traps and replace those traps to have use as a weapon, essentially. If you're trying to avoid combat, holy hell, this guy's chasing me, I got to get rid of this guy, lay a trap for him here. You know, use your brain. There's other ways to go about beating the game. There's more than one way to play through it. Okay? The game's going to continue to rise. I can guarantee that. But more importantly, game number 3, you should already know. And I say more importantly because this is in my opinion, the better version. Saw 2, Flesh and Blood. Konami made a lot of changes here. And once again, the reviews bashed it to hell. Now in Saw 2, Konami rebuilt the combat system from the ground up. Because everybody bashed the combat system in the first one. And then all these so-called reviewers decided that the combat system is even worse in the second one, and they praised the first one. All of a sudden, the first one was good. First one's good again in comparison to the combat system here. By the way, both games have multiple endings for multiple playthroughs. Both games have great storylines, and both games have beautiful charts. Saw 1 had a better chart. Gotta admit that at least. Saw 1, Straight line up. Long term. Remember, long term. No short term move. An untrained eye might have said, oh, look at that. It peaked at 42. It's going to crash. It's going to come back down to $10. You moron. It's never going to $10. And guess what? 42 is still cheap. You're going to be looking at this years in the future thinking, holy hell, I should have paid 42. Now it's 200. That's what's going to happen to you. Saw 2 made a, hefty first round move up. That was a monster move. Absolute monster. Came back down. That's about a 40% retracement, let's say. Peak around 60, came back to around 35. And now she's starting to uptrend a little bit more. Making that next wave up. Perhaps, I was going to say probably catching a floor around 50, a baseline. But interestingly enough, look at these recent sold listings. $90. Holy hell. That was March 7th. Well, that might be an indication. That one was either in really good condition. It's sometimes it's possible, condition plays a big role. I will pay a premium for mint condition 360 game. They're very hard to come by. But if we ignore that one, it does seem like the majority of the sales are in that $50, $60 range. $75, holy hell, $90, $80. Okay, so it's really starting to creep up to that $90 level. So it's going to be $100 soon. A lot of $70, $80, $90 listings down here. $80. Okay, so it's come down from 80. Let's say down from 80 down to 60. Now it's starting to creep higher again. That's what's going on. Very interesting. Now, even more interesting, let's have a look at one other thing. Look at the PS3 version. A lot of times the PS3 version does command a higher value than the 360 version. But the 360 version will follow the same trend. And in some cases, it will eventually surpass the PS3 version. Many predict that the 360 prices are going to actually surpass the PS3 prices in the future, because it's been a sleeper console. PS3 has been awake much longer overall. A lot more collectors dove in on the PS3 early. But this is a beautiful trend. Like many stocks, they seem to move in waves. You just wake up one night. Look at this. You went to bed. It was $20 game. Sawtooth, $20 game. You went to bed. You woke up the next day, because that's how quick this is going to feel like. You're not checking eBay for 1 or 2 months. You just wake up one day. It's over double. It's at $40. Let's just keep math simple. It's double. It's $40. Then you wake up another day, and holy hell, it's at $60. The price is now tripled. And then you say, whoa. Okay, let me wait for the price to come down again. And then you wake up another day, it's up. It's quadrupled. It's $80. And then you wait longer, and it's $100. And then you wait longer, and oh wow, look at these sold listings. $80, $142. 142 on March 6th. I'm recording this on March 16th. That was 10 days ago. Oh my gosh, one day before that, $142, 128, 121, 108. Do you see a trend here? Do you see a pattern? I like to look at patterns. Patterns can, give us a lot of information. We can learn a lot from patterns. $100, 128, 118, 114, 112, 71 down there. 85s. Well, those 85s don't look like they're coming back anytime soon. And maybe those were piss poor condition on top of that. Look at that. Holy hell, $162. Holy frig, man. Here's something that's interesting about the Saw games. Saw was designed to be different from Silent Hill. Konami designed it this way. Konami designed it to rely on visual intensity for its horror elements rather than psychological terror. like their flagship Silent Hill franchise. They did that on purpose because they thought both these series could survive without competing against each other. They're both horror games, but they're different types of horror. Saw is very unique. It does rely on a lot of that visual and just crazy, messed up, sick stuff where you need to be some sick son of a bitch to be doing or enjoying some of that stuff. But that's what Saw is. It's just like the movie, right? So next up, I have a very interesting gem for you. It's an action RPG. Came out in 2009. A hack and slash fantasy action RPG. I love my RPGs. And what did we say about RPGs earlier? Even bad RPGs can still command or hold a good value. Doesn't mean it's going to $500. Not all RPGs go to the moon, okay? But they'll hold value. They'll slowly creep up. Maybe at the very least they keep up with inflation. Okay, RPGs are always going to be sought after just by just by the fact that it's an RPG. We've got Venetica. I want to show you this chart because some of you are instantly saying, well, I remember that game. That game sucked. That game got piss poor reviews because guess what? Destructoid gave it a 3 out of 10. GameSpot gave it a 5 out of 10. And PlayStation Official Magazine gave it a 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10s. So we got 3s, 4s, and 10s. So do you think that's a good game? You think that's a friggin' AAA Fable? The next Fable? You think that's Final Fantasy? No, it's not. But guess what? It's also not worthy of those reviews. All of these games, in fact, you've seen the prices go up. The Saw franchise got terrible reviews. Did I write down what the reviews were? No, but they were all bad. I didn't write it down, but they were like 4s out of 10s, 5 out of 10, 5.5 out of 10. All bad reviews. Well, isn't that how all the hidden gems work, or a lot of them at least? A lot of these games that go on to become cult classics, or that didn't sell well, those $5 games that were $5 for years, $15 for years, that shoot up to $150 like Saw 2, they all had bad reviews. The critics get it wrong. They're not always right. They don't understand everything. And the market will decide how good or how bad a game is. The gamers will decide. And unfortunately, especially back then, those reviewers did have a sway on whether a game sold or not. So with Venetica, you've got a traditional, very classic, standard action RPG. You fight with weapons and magical spells. You gain experience points, and you choose how to level up your skills and your attributes and your weapons. So there is some customization that you can use to your playstyle. Hack and slash style combat. 40 hours of gameplay. We've got a full-on RPG here. This is not some low-budget garbage. It's not a AAA title, though. You're not going to go into this thinking you've landed yourself the next Dark Souls. I'll tell you that right now. The game is gaining popularity, though, because look at this chart. Does anyone notice a trend here? Does anyone notice what is quite obviously a straight line up? If I were to draw an arrow here, any technician, any technical analysis guru out there will tell you, holy hell, I need to buy this stock. This stock is looking great. It goes nowhere but up. Sign me up, please, and yes, I'd like to pay $5. Well, you can't get it for $5 anymore. You waited too long. But guess what? It's still cheap. You think $20 is expensive? Because it's not. You think $30 is expensive? 30's pretty cheap, man. You don't think this $30 game, let's just say it's $30. About 20 though. But even let's say it's 30. Do you think that it can go to 50? Given the trend that you see right here, right now? Do you think it's possible that this slow and steady riser could continue at this nice, beautiful, slow and steady rate? Do you not think that inflation is going to continue for the rest of your entire life? And do you not think that this is going to keep up with inflation? Because I'm not selling you this game for $15 or $10. I'd blow my own balls off before I give you this game for $10. I'll tell you that right now. And it won't be the first time I've done it. This type of game could easily continue this trend, and you're going to wake up one day and it's going to be 50 or 60 Canadian dollars. Here's the thing about cheap games. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I know people like this. They don't want a game. They'll look at a Venetica. They'll look at that chart and they'll say $5 game. I don't want to buy a $5 game. That game's cheap. Why are you buying cheap games? They contribute cheap with bad games, and they think, oh, it's $5. It's never going to go up in value. That $15 Blitz the League 2, oh, that's not going to go up in value. Well, have you looked at the price today, buddy? I own 5 copies. I didn't pay over $25 for a single one. Do the math. And it's going higher too. Going a lot higher. But there are people out there, they look at a cheap game and say, why are you buying cheap games? I don't want to buy a cheap game. And then guess what? The game goes to $150. And then all of a sudden they want the game. They look at a Saw 2 on the PS3. They say, $10, $15 game. I don't want that game. It's a garbage game. Oh, wait a minute. It's $150? Oh, I want that game. I want that game so bad. So bad. And then they're saving up the money. They're, every week that goes by, they're watching eBay on a daily basis, trying to find a deal. They're friggin' selling their left kidney to purchase some of these games. They don't want the game when it's cheap. They only want it when it goes up in value. I'm telling you right now, don't wait. Don't get rid of that mindset, because that's a common thing, believe it or not. How a lot of people think. They don't want the game until it's expensive. Venetica, maybe they don't want it today. It's $20 today. They say, I don't want that game. Well, wait till it's 60. Those same people that don't want it today, they're going to want it when it's 60. Those same people that didn't buy Culdcept Saga when it was 40, they're going to be paying 200. Because they didn't want it when it was 40. But now that it's 200, or when it hits 200, all of a sudden they want it. Next up, we got The Legend of Spyro, Dawn of Dragons. Oh, hell yeah. Oh, this is a great example. I'll tell you why in a minute. Hold on. Look at the CIB first. Look at the CIB. Beautiful. She's beautiful. So this came out in 2008. And as far as I know, it's actually the very last Spyro game on a home console. Like a new Spyro game, not that Trilogy HD remake. As far as I know, it's still the last Spyro game. And this is a very interesting one because guess what? Like all these other games, it got piss poor reviews at the time. Let me read it to you right now. It's gonna blow your freaking mind. Mix the poor reviews. 4 out of 10 from Game Informer. 5 out of 10 from GameSpot. Everybody knows GameSpot. And I can't even read my own chicken scratch. GameCore, I guess, gave it a 5.4 out of 10 on the PS3. I bring this up because, interestingly enough, on the 360, they gave it an 8.5 out of 10. And many games, such as Driver San Francisco, a lot of the time some of these games were better on the 360. They had better frame rates, a little bit better graphics, maybe less slowdown. And what I've heard, the reason for the 360 being the better of the consoles for many of these games is because the 360 was easier to program for. That's my understanding. So for whatever reason, PS3 was more difficult, and maybe it had to do with even the skill level of the programmers. That was a big thing with the Sega Saturn versus the PS1. The Sega Saturn was notoriously difficult to program for. And it was said that only 1 out of 100 programmers could properly program for that console. And that's why your ports were garbage ports. You would have the same game on both consoles, but the PS1 was significantly better. That had nothing to do with the hardware. That was all about the programming. And the fact that, unless you're the best of the best programmers, you couldn't program properly for that console. And same with actually development of new games as well. If you weren't one of the best programmers in the world, that 1 out of 100, you were not capable of having your game utilize the console to its full abilities. Because the Sega Saturn was a very powerful console. So it got poor reviews, but guess what? I've played the game. And it's my favorite Spyro game of all time. So I don't agree with the reviews. And I think that's why the price is going up. And let's not forget the most important part. This game is 2-player co-op. It was also the first Spyro game to introduce free flight, where you could basically take off and fly around at any time. That 8.5 review that it got on the 360, that's realistically what it probably should have got. It's an 8 out of 10 game for a Spyro game. Chart hasn't done too much, but what is interesting that you should take note of is it's always commanded a high value. It's never been a cheap game. Never has this come down in price. You're not going to find this for $5, and that tells me that it's very likely an uncommon game. It's certainly not rare. This one does come up from time to time. But it commands a high value, meaning it's in high demand. People want this game. It's very sought after. And if we scroll down, I think it's trending higher. So this chart goes all the way back to January. We can see some $35 listings, although it doesn't specify if it's CIB or not. But here's some $40 sales, 40, 50, 40, 50, 60, 40, 50s, 70s. We're getting some of those higher numbers starting to creep in ever so slowly. 50s, 40s, 60s. Now we're getting high 40s. Higher, mid-high 40s. 60s starting to pop up a lot more often. 60, 60, 67, 75. Very slowly creeping up. It's slow and steady. It's not showing on the chart yet, but that's what's happening. You're going to wake up and it's going to be $100. Number 6, we got a monster hit. Asura's Wrath. Capcom published game. Action, third-person action beat 'em up from 2012. I got mine in a protective case. It's in this case for a reason. That alone's got to tell you something. Now, this is a Capcom game that I rarely ever see anybody talk about. It does not get mentioned very often, if at all, especially considering it is a Capcom game. So it's a good game. Capcom does not release bad games. I can't think of a single bad Capcom game on any console. It can't be done. It's not possible. So unlike these other games, this one actually did get average to positive reviews. I think the sales were probably fairly decent, but nowhere near what they should be. Let's let the chart show you just how much of a gem this game is. Oh, look at that. $10 back in 2019. $10. Nobody wanted it. Remember? Cheap games. Nobody was collecting for 360 back then because apparently they don't like buying cheap before the prices go up. But also it's that generational thing. So a lot of the younger people are coming in a little bit later than us more seasoned collectors. This is, the chart doesn't get any better, guys. Straight line up between May 2019 to June 2022. That was not that long ago. Built a base since then, and now it's getting its second wind. It's going for another tail up. It's going for another move. I would love to see what this looks like in a couple more years. If we get a repeat of 2019 to 2021, 2022 era, I mean, you're easily looking at $100, $150 game, $200 game. Who knows? And I'm talking years away. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight. The game itself is actually very unique and is often called an interactive anime. The gameplay does get broken up. It's not just third person beat 'em up action style gameplay. You also get a lot of cinematic interactive cutscenes. You're doing quick time events. That's where that whole anime feeling comes in. The graphics are 10 out of 10. They really do show off the capabilities of the console itself. And more importantly, I want to read you a very interesting quote. Let me find the quote. So this is coming from, I guess, the creator of the game. I'm not even going to say his name, the Japanese name. This Japanese guy revealed that he felt the game, being Asura's Wrath, would serve to satisfy fans wanting a sequel to the 2006 PlayStation 2 game, God Hand, which was, critics loved the game, but it failed commercially. It was a huge failure, as a matter of fact. He was later pleased that people had seen the deliberate similarities between the two games. This is important. This is very freaking important. And I'm about to show you why. Let me pull it up. What similarities does Asura's Wrath have with God Hand? So it's similar gameplay, similar in nature that nobody talks about it, similar that it was well praised, got pretty good reviews overall. Sales weren't nearly as weren't where Capcom had expected them to be. Well, God Hand and perhaps the charts are somewhat similar as well. Because guess what? God Hand used to be a cheap game. You used to be able to get this for $25. Slow and steady, just kept on rising. 2019 hits, $65 game. Peaked out around 200 smackers as of May 2021. It's a pretty short period of time. If you wanted the game, you should have just bought it back at $50, $60. That's what you should have done. And it's still, to this day, it's holding a pretty good value. A lot of $200 plus sales. These two here don't say if they're complete or not. 175 complete, 200 complete, 200 complete, 182 complete, 236 complete, 257 complete. That was back in February 21st, not that long ago. Probably in really good condition on top of that. $200, 250, $200, 270, February 8th, closing in on $300. Well, God Hand's been around a lot longer than Asura's Wrath. This chart in the longer picture might start to look a little bit like God Hand, especially as word spreads how good the game is and more people get interested. I can't help but think that Asura's Wrath, in the long term, this chart might start looking like the God Hand chart, especially as people realize that this is the spiritual sequel to God Hand. If you like God Hand, you're probably going to like this game. Number 7, I've got one of the rarest games on the North American Xbox 360 game lineup. Now, we're not talking UK here. This is a 360 exclusive, console exclusive. Yet again, you're not going to find it on the PS3. That means it's an exclusive. Okay, North American version. because this one gets complicated. This is a very unique gem. UK watchers out there will be more familiar with this. On Police. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's German. Okay, I don't speak German. Some German guy's gonna write in the comments, you didn't pronounce that right. Downvote. Well, sorry, buddy. I didn't grow up in Germany. Okay, I don't speak German. CIB, of course. Now this game, I mean, let's just get it straight out of the way. This is one of the rarest games on the console. You're never going to find it in the wild. You will never in your life find this game in the wild. It's that rare. And if you do find it, I would recommend buying it immediately. If you're watching this and you're thinking right now that you've seen this at a local pawn shop, local game store, and they had it for a reasonable price, perhaps underpriced, because guess what? A lot of racing games, car driving games typically get underpriced. I got Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005 for the Xbox 360. That's a 360 exclusive. It's not on the PS3. I got it for $5 because I caught the local retro game store slipping on their prices. Heath just assumed it was a garbage racing game. He had a section for the $5 games, and he put the game in that section. He just thought, oh, racing game, $5. All of his garbage games he put over in that section, $5. No price tags because they're all $5. So apparently what this is, apparently the story is, this is actually known as Crash Time 2 in the UK. This came out in 2008. Has a completely different name, completely different cover in the UK. I'm going to guesstimate that the UK version is probably not rare in the UK. But what I can tell you is this North American version is rare as hell. I've seen the game show up in an auction group twice. And that's over the course of like 6 years. So it's not common. Maybe more, maybe 8 years even. The game is very unique though. You are playing a detective. And you know what? If I were to sum it up, it's actually the poor man's version of Driver. It's that simple. You're playing a detective. You're playing through missions. You're driving around. You're basically patrolling as you drive around. And you are role-playing that you are a detective. Well, I mean, you actually are a detective, but as you're driving around, the role-play is that you are on patrol. Let's look at this chart. And as you would expect from a rare as hell Xbox 360 game, the game ain't cheap. It doesn't sell very often. The game is not as good as Driver, but it is a solid game. You're not going to get a AAA title out of this one. And based on the title, picking a German title that nobody can pronounce for a North American release, I don't think they expected it to sell very well. And they probably didn't have a high print run. As a matter of fact, I guarantee they didn't have a high print run based on the fact that I never see it. And it's rare as hell. And when a game like this gets into the hands of a collector, it's generally not going back on the market. Keep that in mind as well when you're purchasing collectible games. I'm not selling my copy, ever. I will be buried with this game. So the chart looks, I mean, like any beautiful chart does. It's straight line up from 2019 all the way to March 1 year ago today. It's come back down a little bit since then, but remember, this chart doesn't show you the real prices. Here's where the real prices are. March 14th. Oh hell, 2 days ago. Complete copy sold for about $70. $50, $70. This was probably disc only. Actually, this was Crash Time 2. That was a UK version. Oh no, that's That's a completely different game. That's not this game. Well, that's the flaw in this algorithm on price charting. Yeah, so a lot of sold listings between $40 and $50. That's where the game sits today. Good luck finding information on this game because you're not going to find anything. I couldn't even find a good review. It's very confusing because they used different titles between the North American version and the UK version. But it might be a game that you're interested in. That's all I'm saying. I'm showing you good quality games that are going up in value. That doesn't mean go out and buy it. That's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this so that if you see particular games that you want, if you're looking at this and you're like a hardcore race fan and hardcore driver fan, you might want to purchase this game. But on the other hand, if you're looking at this game and you're saying, I hate driver and I hate driving games, you might not want to. Probably going to want to avoid this game. Stay far away from it. If you don't even like driver, you're not going to like this game. This is the poor man's driver. That's what that is. But on the third type of person that might want that game, though, is a hardcore collector. People who just love collecting, and you want a game like that before it goes up in price, because you got to ask yourself, do you want to pay $50 today, or do you want to pay $75 tomorrow? Or do you want to pay $100 the day after that? Which one do you want? Game number 8, we got Armored Core 5. This game, I mean, if you've been watching the Armored Core games in general, you'll know that they're all up. Every single one. And pick an Armored Core game. The price is way up. Way up. What caused, for whatever reason, like a crazy phenomenon happened that when Armored Core 6 was announced, the Armored Core games went bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Some went up a lot more than others. Obviously, the more rare ones. Some of them are more common than others. These are mech simulation combat games. Okay, like Mech Warrior. Mech Warrior was the big one back in the day. Mech Assault for the Xbox. Well, Mech Warrior was replaced and outshined by the Armored Core series. These guys are the top dogs. They make the best mech games in the world, hands down. And Armored Core 5 is arguably significantly better than Armored Core 4. Let's have a look at the chart here. First thing you're going to notice about this chart is this massive, insane tripling of the price overnight. Well, that was upon the release of Armored Core 6. I can't remember if it was the exact release date or if it was the announcement of the game, because I don't follow Armored Core 6. But regardless, this bump came up because of Armored Core 6. It happened with all of the Armored Core games. Every single one got a huge bump. And when this bump happened, a lot of people were expecting the prices to come back down to where they had come from pre-Armored Core 6 announcement. None of them did. Actually, this one here is a great example because it did trend down temporarily. So it was almost as if it was going to come back down. But none of them did, and right from the beginning, I said that it would not happen because they were trending up to begin with. Now, the 360 version doesn't show it as good, but the PS3 version does. And the 360 version will always follow the PS3 pricing. The trend will follow each other. It was creeping up regardless. It was about a $10 game in 2020. Very cheap, by the way. And it was creeping up. It had doubled, right? November 2022, it doubled in price. Until the game comes back down to 20, then it didn't crash. It didn't come back down to where it was. It stayed up and it will continue to stay up. I think it's proven that enough time has passed that these games are now set in stone, that they're commanding a much higher price. They're never coming back down. You're not going to get this game for $20. You will never in your life get it for $20 ever again. But let's look at the PS3 version. I like this chart better because you can see that uptrend a lot better. $14, $15 in March of 2020. Just slow and steady gainer. Slow and steady. Approaching $35 as of November 22nd. Nice straight line up. Not too steep of a curve. Just looking great. Had that huge spike and just like the 360 dipped back down. Shot back up again. But what I've been saying right from the beginning is that these games were going to hit these levels anyway. All the announcement of Armored Core 6 did was speed up the process. This trend was going to continue in that upward trajectory anyway. This trend was going to continue. Yeah, it would have taken a lot longer to reach that $50, $60, $73 level, but it was going to go there anyway. Which brings us to number 9, what is arguably the best Armored Core game ever made, Armored Core Verdict Day. And by the way, you can bring your saved mechs over from Armored Core 5 over to this version, I do believe, because it asked me to bring over my save files when I loaded this up. Now, unfortunately, at the time, I didn't have any save files to actually bring over. I think it was asking me to bring my mech over. I skipped over it, but I'm fairly certain that you can bring your mechs over from the previous game. Because also, by the way, this is a direct sequel to Armored Core 5. A direct sequel. Well, I mean, it makes sense. It is called Armored Core 5 Verdict Day. So it makes sense. So the thing about this game is it is very quickly becoming a cult classic. Like the Armored Core series is it's really taken off. Like, it's getting popular. So to let you know how special this game is and how big of a gem this was and how it was a hidden gem and how the Armored Core series and Armored Core Verdict Day in particular is gaining more and more popularity with every month that passes. I'm going to read you a quote from IGN. This was a back in the day quote. This is not recent. IGN stated, when talking about Armored Core Verdict Day, they said, there was a special type of magic here that most games would never even attempt. That quote, although brief, is actually very powerful because it explains the game perfectly. Gems like this don't come around very often. As a matter of fact, I compare that to 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. They took a lot of risks on that game and they did something that nobody else would even dare to dream to attempt. And it cost them a lot of money. They almost went bankrupt. Vanillaware, they made 13 Sentinel Aegis Rim. They almost bankrupted themselves with that game. And it didn't sell well in the beginning. It gained popularity through word of mouth. So here we have the chart proving just how special this game is. Would you look at that? Even before November 2022, this game was already rip-roaring higher. So it was probably word of mouth was spreading. Slow and steady riser. Can you believe it? 2020, you could have got this game for 10, 12, 15 bucks. Holy freak, 2021, you could have got it for 30. 30 bucks, May of 2022. That wasn't that long ago. Remember that as well. That was a blink of an eye. Nothing more than a small blimp. A speck in time. And she's been trending up ever since. We got that little dip down. And we got that big November 22nd Armored Core boost, Armored Core 6 boost. and she never stopped. Because a gem like this doesn't come around very often. There's no real competition for a gem like this, really. So you need to ask yourself, do you think a trend like this might continue? Would a game like this double? Because we're going to get $500, $600 Xbox 360 games. In fact, we already got one, if not two. F1 2013, check that one out, North American version. We already got our first $500, $600 360 game. Do you think we're going to get more? Like every other console before the 360? Do you think the 360 is going to be the exception, that we don't get a $1,000 game? We don't get multiple $200, $300, $400, $500, $600 games? I don't think it's going to be the exception. Especially when we're living in a world that's going all digital. Physical games are going to be a thing of the past. But yeah, this is a beautiful chart. And I did pick this one up myself recently. And I paid up for it. I paid up. Now, admittedly, I got a deal. I caught somebody slipping on eBay. They put a copy up. I'll tell you the story. I'll tell you. Maybe I'll put up a picture too. I got lucky. I got lucky. And I didn't even save that much money. But I'll take what I can get. Somebody posted the game up and said they didn't know it was CIB. They said, "Oh, it's missing the manual. Got no manual." Well, you moron! It never had a manual. The game doesn't have a manual. It was CIB. He had it up as he had it discounted as if it wasn't CIB. He didn't know. And on top of that, he had a best offer. And I offered him like $10, $10 or $15 under the asking price, and he accepted it. Or no, I think he countered me. I wanted $15 off. I was just like lowballing him. I just want to see what would happen. I was expecting a counter though. You know, if he was going to even honor the or best offer, because he was already underpriced to begin with. It came up. This all happened the same day he posted it. I had my notifications up and ready. I got the email notification. He put it up as like, I'll just guesstimate $110. Really freaking good deal. CIB shipped. Okay, Canadian. I think I offered him, it was either 90 or 95. Let's just say it was 90. I'm pretty sure he countered me at 95 and I accepted. It's going to 200. It might not happen tomorrow. It might not happen 1 year from now. It might not happen 2 years from now. But eventually you're going to wake up and it's going to be 200. And depending on what inflation does in the meantime, you might wake up and see it at 400. We'll see what happens. Number 10. One of the best games ever made. The Simpsons game. This came out around the time of the movie. I do remember that. Because the movie, if I'm not mistaken, the movie came out in 2007. Yeah, okay, here it is. So if I'm not mistaken, the movie came out in 2007, and this game came out in 2007. And if you're not familiar with this, it is a 3D platformer, but it does have a lot of like mini game style events / levels in it as well, and it's got some open world exploration on top of that. So it's not just a classic level-based platformer. It's got those open world elements to it. But the reason why this game is so good, besides being just a 10 out of 10 awesome game, it's got that Simpsons humor with it. It's very funny. It's hilarious. It's got a good story that matches something that you would see in an actual Simpsons episode. But more importantly, it's 2-player co-op. See if that camera will pick that up. Most of the game can be played in split screen 2-player co-op. You can play throughout the whole game. Now, not everything is 2-player split screen, so you're going to have some pass the controller or watch your buddy play moments for certain areas. but the levels, most of the levels can be played split screen co-op. So you can play throughout the entire game with a buddy, play out throughout the entire game with your wife, your girlfriend, your son or your daughter. It's kid-friendly game. It's Simpsons. Okay, kids can play Simpsons. No profanity, just classic, wholesome fun. Okay, it's rated T for teen. I would let my 5-year-old play this game. Oh, and here's the best part. Have a friend drop in and drop out of your game at any time in co-op mode. So it's got drop in, drop out co-op. Over 40 minutes of brand new Simpsons animation you won't see anywhere else. Hilarious plot written by the Simpsons writers, spoken by Springfield favorites. Simpsons punch, nag, meditate, and eat their way through the video game industry. Greg, man, this game's a 10 out of 10, guys. 10 out of freaking 10. Give me the chart. Pull the chart up. Pull that chart up. Oh, yeah. Beautiful chart, too. Absolutely beautiful. Bottomed / flatlined right up until about November 2019. Slow and steady riser ever since. That nice, other than that big initial move where it basically doubled, slow and steady. Although it seems to, when this chart catches up and zooms out a bit, that might be a bit of a steeper curve going up there. Yeah, oh, she's not cheap either anymore, guys. She's not cheap. We're looking at $60, $70 sold listings, $80, holy hell. 75, closer to 60s down here. Not sure if they're CIB, probably are. Oh, this one says it's with manual and poster. Mine does not have a poster. Holy friggin' hell. Guys, one of these versions has a poster. I just learned something new. If you want the best version, and it's probably going to cost you an arm and a leg to get it, get the one with the poster. Oh, look at that. Yeah, so there is a poster. If any of you hardcore collectors out there, you might want to consider getting the Simpsons game with the poster. That is incredible. Because you know what? I bought this game, what I thought was brand new in the past. I sold my original copy. I wish I could remember if I had a poster. I must have. Wish I took it out now. I would have left it in the box. Like I never took the poster out of the box. I'm 99% certain I bought this game brand spanking new back in the day. And that's the beauty of The Simpsons, by the way. This game, you do not need to be a Simpsons fan. And as a matter of fact, that's also going to contribute to why the price is rising and why I am predicting this will become a $100 game. And it's not rare. This is not a rare game. The Simpsons game sold pretty dang well. It didn't sell, it's not Halo here, but it sold well, but it's also highly sought after. But the beauty of it is, it's going to gain popularity every single week and month and year that passes because it's a good game and non-Simpsons fans are going to want to play it. Not because it's Simpsons, but just because it's fun. And it's got co-op. You can play it with a friend. You can play it with your wife. They will be playing it for the gameplay. Whereas people like me play it because it's Simpsons and it's actually good. This is not like the other Simpsons garbage games that they made. Simpsons, there's so many garbage Simpsons games. In fact, a lot of people probably wrote this game off back in the day because they thought it was going to be garbage, like every other Simpsons game. Well, somehow they hit a freaking home run on this one. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. Please leave a comment below if you enjoyed this content. I don't have a script. I go into these blind. I'm ranting. It's probably been over an hour. I have no idea how long it's been. I don't do scripts. So, if you'd like to see more, leave a comment below. Let me know, and I will have episode 6.9 out very, very soon. I'm going to finish this series. It's been a year in the making. I've decided it needs to get done. It's gonna happen. And then we're gonna go one step further, guys. I've got a big special event planned. I'm just gonna reveal it right now. I'm gonna have a rap song coming out. I'm gonna have an Xbox 360 rap song coming out. Stay tuned.